Well, good morning, church. Hey, welcome. My name's Geoffrey. I'm the teaching pastor here, and I am honored to get to kick off a new series today. If you're relatively new around here, I just want you to know how honored we are that you're here, and we love that we get to worship with you. So this past June 30th was Sarah and I's 18-year anniversary. So my notes said pause for raucous applause, and I feel like that was not raucous. So June 30th was our 18-year anniversary. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, it really was our anniversary. But right after that, about 14 years ago, so we got married in June of 2006, and in July of 2010, we found out that Sarah was pregnant, which we were so overjoyed at, so excited. And the next 9 months were so peaceful and easy, right? Slept great, ate good, everything was real calm and normal. For me, Sarah was a disaster, right? So pregnant, growing a human, it was a whole deal. And but over those 9 months, you have so many things that you get to anticipate, you get to be excited about. So you get to do like baby showers, where you go and people just give you a lot of stuff. It's like a super birthday for your baby. It's awesome. And you do gender reveals, and you get to hear the heartbeat. Like, remember the first time you heard baby's heartbeat? Like, it's just so, that 9 months is so fun. And you know that after 9 months, things are gonna be different because you're gonna have a human that you have to mess with. And here's my deal. At that point, I was 24 and I was an idiot. I mean, you think I'm dumb now. You should have met me at 24. I'm still eating ramen for breakfast and doing it the unhealthy way, where you drain all the liquid and then you put the seasoning packet right on top, so you just inject sodium directly into your veins. Like, that was me. And I'm about to bring a child home, and I'm gonna have to keep this child alive. She needs me. And you know that's gonna happen, but it doesn't actually become real until you're at the hospital and you're putting the baby in the car seat, and then you're putting the car seat in the car. In that moment, no one has ever driven slower than a person who just put the first newborn in the car. Second kid, you're punting them into the trunk. You're like, whatever, we're gonna be fine, just hit the gas. That first kid, you are terrified. And then you walk in and you've got the carrier, you walk into your house and you stand there. If you're anything like me, if you're a normal person, you stand there and you just look around your house. You're like, oh man, it's real now. Then a few hours later, you're gonna put that baby to bed, and then you have to put them to bed again the next night, and the next night, and the next night. One of the things about babies is you have to put them to bed every single night. And it's exhausting, and it's overwhelming. Because unless you are one of those people, and if this is you, I need to have a huddle with you and give you some life advice. If you're one of those people who your baby slept right away, tell no one ever. Okay? We despise you. I want to kick you directly in the shin. I feel rage in my soul if your child slept right away. You keep that to you, because for the rest of us who had normal babies, this is what we experienced night after night. My kids are 13 and 10, and I still feel trepidation at that sound. I know I am at Beltway South and still can remember the 3 a.m. cries of a baby. And if I have a beef with my oldest child, which she's amazing, she's talented, smart, she's a leader, but if I have a frustration with her, and just so you know, she got to know I was gonna say this, so I'm not outing her right now. She is a lot like me in that sleep has always been optional. It didn't really need it, and as a baby, it was magnified times 1,000. She just didn't care to sleep. Sleep was where, like everything else, she was missing out on. She didn't need sleep. What is sleep? And that is how she functioned every day. So here was Sarah and I's rhythm. We would have her all day, put her at the little cute bows, and she was all fun, and you were taking all the real great Instagram pictures. Like, it was great. And then we'd put her to bed, and we would just close our eyes and just wait. And every night you would go, please God, let this be the night that she doesn't cry. And then 5 seconds later, you heard that sound. And then you start the process. You go in there, I gotta check diapers. I gotta make sure that she's not hungry. I gotta make sure nothing's pinching her. And then you just put her back down, and then the crying would happen again. And it got so bad at times that Sarah and I, we had a video monitor. We would go out to our front porch and we would mute the sound, and we would just sit in the silence of outside and feel so utterly discouraged. And that was the weird part of that season. It's honestly was the weird part for months. It's like discouragement was this ever-present emotion that we wrestled with every day. We could have had a perfectly fine day, but we knew that night we had to put that baby to bed. And we knew in our minds that crying was coming, and we weren't sure we could handle it another night. And you could feel this overwhelming discouragement constantly. And we all feel this. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about how we can overcome discouragement, so that it's not something that we just have constantly running in the background. Every single one of us is going to experience discouragement. You will, or you are, or you have. No one is exempt from discouragement. It might be that you've really invested in your marriage. You've spent time and work into it, and it still is so difficult and you feel discouraged. It might be in your job that you worked hard and you felt like you deserved the promotion. It didn't happen and you feel discouraged. It could be a relationship that you have been wanting to have and it's not happening and you feel discouraged. Or a child separated from a parent and you feel the distance and you feel discouraged. It might be illness, it might be money. We all at some point in our life will experience discouragement. I could give you story after story. The Berkeley crying as a baby, that is one of a million. I could tell you stories about being discouraged here in my job. I could tell you times I was discouraged after I preached. Tell you times I was discouraged when I was in school. Times that I've been discouraged as a parent. Listen, the discouragement didn't stop whenever the baby finally started sleeping, which happened last week. The discouragement happens all the time. It happened in the Bible times. Heroes of our faith face discouragement. King David wrote the Psalms. And you see utter despair from King David at times. He would go from the highest of highs, God, I love you, I'm so close to you, I feel like we're right there, we're living life together. And then the next chapter is down in the pits of despair. You see it in Elijah. Elijah has this great victory. God moves in this miraculous way. And then a queen comes to try to kill him and he goes on the run. And while he's on the run, he gets so discouraged that he begs God to end his life. And these are heroes of the faith. Each and every one of us will experience discouragement at some point in time. And while it is common, it's not a healthy place for us to stay in seasons of discouragement. Discouragement is one of the greatest tools the enemy uses to keep us from the life that God has for us. And the way that he does it, the way that he wraps us in those seasons is by getting us to focus in the wrong place. Often our focus as people can be a lot like this magnifying glass, okay? You know what a magnifying glass does? It magnifies things, okay? Makes them bigger. It allows you just to focus on the one thing that you're focusing on in that moment. And for so many of us, our natural predisposition as we deal with life and as we go from day to day is we will focus on the things that are overwhelming or discouraging or frustrating. We'll get so caught up in looking at, I can just see this. And then we miss everything else. And not only do we just look at that one thing, that one area that we might be discouraged in, that becomes more magnified than even it might be in the moment. So it could be that for you, the job is in a place of discouragement for you, and so you just keep focusing on that job, and we miss everything else that might be going around. It might be you desired a relationship or the relationship is a mess, and that's your point of discouragement. And when we focus on that, we're missing so much of what is going on around us each and every day. I don't know what your discouragement piece is, but I know this, all of us. One of the greatest ways the enemy is distracting us and pulling us away from the life God has is through focusing on areas of discouragement. And it is a crafty tactic because it is something that we're all going to feel. And when we get stuck in those places, it's so hard at times to even see that we're stuck there. But all it is, it's a matter of focus. Discouragement is actually not the problem. The problem is where our focus is. And what I believe we're going to see in our text today is that our focus as believers is not actually supposed to be on anything in our lives right now. Our focus is supposed to be on eternity, and an eternal focus transforms our present reality. I wholeheartedly believe that is what we see in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. So if you will, find a Bible. Open up to 2 Corinthians 4. We're going to camp out in here for the rest of our time. If you do not have a Bible, and you're at one of our physical campuses, there's one around you. Online campus, I just want you to know how honored I am that you're a part of our church. I love that we get to worship together week in and week out. on the screen right now for you. You can see the icon. Click that icon, and it'll open up to our passage. 2 Corinthians 4, we're going to start in verse 16. While you turn there, I want us to give a little context. Sometimes we read Scripture and we forget what is actually going on. We read it as people who are living in the year of our Lord 2024. And we forget that these letters, so this is 2 Corinthians, that means there was a 1 Corinthians. This is the second letter to the church in Corinth. And this letter was written 30, 40, 50 years after Jesus is gone. So this is pretty fresh for all of them. The church is just being formed. They're figuring everything out as they're going. It's messy. It was great. They saw God do a lot of cool stuff. It's difficult, and that's so often, that is the target, that's the audience of these letters. So that is what Paul is doing as he writes to a church in Corinth. And he writes this in 2 Corinthians 4:16. So we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. As we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. Here's where I want us to really start today, is this word. So. That's a huge word. I mean, it's not. It's 2 letters, so it's actually a pretty small word. It's huge in the context of this scripture. And if you have the NIV, and you grew up on the NIV like I did, it says, therefore. Therefore and so mean essentially the same thing in this passage. Paul says, hey, don't lose heart. So whatever came before this, don't lose heart. Therefore, don't lose heart. You're like, well, why? What's going on that they don't need to lose heart? A few verses before this, Paul writes, we are afflicted in every way, but not crushed. We're perplexed, but not driven to despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. Paul paints a bleak picture of what is going on for the believers in Corinth. I mean, look at this. We're afflicted in every way. We're not crushed. We're perplexed, but not driven to despair. We are persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. I mean, he is painting a heavy picture for what is going on at the church in Corinth at the time. This is a picture of discouragement. I mean, that church was going to be wrestling with and battling through a really difficult season. And Paul goes, yes, I know we're struck down, we're perplexed, we're confused. I know that. So, yes, I know it's been a weighty season. So, and that so carries so much hope for you and I. So important for us. It is in so that we see hope. It is in so that we see that we can overcome discouragement. It is in so that we know that we don't have to stay disappointed. So we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. As we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. So we do not lose heart. So, there is hope, though the outer self might be wasting away. And this is an interesting picture that Paul paints for it. And I was thinking about it this week, and I was thinking, what's the best way to describe the outer self being wasted away? And here's what I think. If you are over 30, you understand what that means, right? Something happens when you are 29 and 364 days. And if anyone's about to turn 30, I'm sorry. This is a bleak picture for you. Argue with God. So it's 29, 364 days, you go to sleep. 8 hours later, you wake up a different person. You're like, my back hurts so bad. My hip feels like it popped out of socket. Sarah, did I fall out of bed in the middle of the night? Did a bull run me over? All of a sudden, you've lost hair, you've gained weight, your bladder ceases to work, or it's on overdrive, one of the two. Like you begin to fall apart, it feels like, when you turn 30. Though the outer self is wasting away is a picture of something falling apart like that. It is a picture of death. So Paul says, so don't lose heart, though the outer self might be wasting away. As we get older, every one of us, your bodies begin to fall apart. There's things that we can do to stop that. You can go to the gym, you can eat better. Some people will tell you essential oils will save you for the rest of your life. There are things that we can do to help slow down the process of the outer self being wasted away. There is nothing we can do to stop it. There are 2 people in the history of time that we know of that did not die, It is Elijah, who was taken up into heaven. There's a guy named Enoch. Those are the two. Those are the only two we know of, that their outer self did not waste away at such a place that they did not die. Everyone else has died. Everyone else has outer self, has wasted away over time. Everyone else, as we got older, was experiencing death at a level. That is the image when Paul says, though the outer self is wasting away, it's an image of things dying. It's an image of things that are not eternal, that will waste away. And what Paul says is everything around us is that way. Though the outer self might be wasting away, is a picture that everything around us is dying. Everything at some point is going to go away. And Paul says, hey, that's the stuff you cannot focus on, because we are unable to stop the outer self wasting away. So Paul tells us what to focus on. For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. Paul says you have to change your focus from what we see all around us all the time, what we might be experiencing, though the outer self might be wasting away. We focus on the eternal, because an eternal focus transforms our present reality. If our primary focus remains on the things around us, guess what? We will fall into discouragement. You know how I know? Because people will fail you. They just will. It is the nature of the world that we live in. There will be times of sickness. There will be things that are difficult. And if our focus remains on the things that are not eternal, we will fall into seasons and times of discouragement. Discouragement always comes for us as we focus on things that waste away instead of on eternity. And Paul goes, hey, you've been in a difficult spot, perplexed, confused, struck down, but we don't have to lose heart. And here's the thing for you today. Maybe you are in that season. Maybe you are in a season where it feels like discouragement is just always running in the background. That so is for you. That word so that Paul writes, he's writing it to the church in Corinth. It's an important word for them if they're going to keep going forward after what God is having for them. But that word so is for you. So we do not lose heart. Paul says there is hope no matter the circumstances. You and I do not have to get stuck in seasons where it feels like we're getting our tails kicked all the time. So we do not lose heart. There is hope. Hope is the total opposite of discouragement. Paul says, no matter what you might be experiencing, you can have hope, because we as people were never made to just be people that lived and breathed and died. We are people who are made in light of eternity. This is how the great C.S. Lewis said this. It's one of my favorite passages he ever wrote. If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. If none of my earthly pleasures satisfy it, that does not prove that the universe is a fraud. Probably earthly pleasures were never meant to satisfy it, but only to arouse it, to suggest the real thing. If that is so, I must take care on the one hand, never to despise or be unthankful for these earthly blessings. And on the other hand, never to mistake them for something of which they are only a kind of copy or echo or mirage. I must keep alive in myself the desire for my true country, which I shall not find till after death. I must never let it get snowed under or turned aside. I must make it the main object of life to press on to that other country and to help others do the same. That is a beautiful way to say that the things of this life were never meant to satisfy us, because each and every one of us was created and made with eternity in mind. And our goal, our focus, is supposed to be on that eternity. And it can be weird. It can be weird to think about eternity, right? Eternity, if you ever want to just have your brain twisted, try to think about eternity in any context of time that you have, and it will just twist you up in a knot. And it's weird to think about eternity and say we're supposed to live in light of eternity and the rewards of eternity, because the culture we live in right now is a I want it and I want it this second culture. You know how I know that? Because fast food restaurants have figured out ways to get us fast food even faster. It's in the name, fast food. And you know what? They're like, that's not fast enough. We're all gonna create an app so that you can order before you even get there. You can pull up, you can type in a number, and then they're gonna bring out your stuff. That's insane. Fast food faster is a great semblance of the way we often live in our culture. We want whatever we want, and we want it now. So we start talking about the rewards of eternity and what that might look like. It can be hard for us to grasp because I want the rewards now. Hear me. You will find the rewards now. You will experience the rewards of a life spent following Jesus. You will find more peace than you have. I believe that wholeheartedly with every bit of me, that if you want more peace in your life, chasing after Jesus, you will have more peace. You know what we won't have? Total peace. We won't, because that peace is only found in the presence of the Father. I will not have perfect peace on this earth. That is a promise of eternity. Can I have more peace? Yes. Do I want more peace? Absolutely. We will have joy as followers of Jesus. We should have joy. We should be growing in joy. I mean, it is one of the fruits of a life spent chasing after Jesus. We should have joy. You know what we won't have on this earth? Fullness of joy. That fullness of joy only happens in the presence of the Father, and we will only experience that when we get to heaven. That is the promise of eternity. We think about heaven often, and it's been so painted by a culture that we have this misconstrued view of heaven. We think it's up in the clouds and we turn into angels and all of a sudden we all learn how to play the harp and we just sit there and it's one long church service. That is not heaven. Do I fully know what heaven is? No. I believe that you are either going to be there or hell whenever we die. But I think a great description of heaven comes out of James. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. When I think about heaven, this is what I think about. Every good and perfect gift. Can I wrap my brain around every good gift? No. Everything perfect? I can't. I cannot fully comprehend what it might be like to experience every good and perfect thing from a Father that loves us more than we can imagine. But I know that this promise in Scripture is for us, and we will only fully experience it whenever we spend eternity with Him. And whenever we live our life remembering eternity, whenever we live our life, our focus is on that and not the things of this earth, then we will have the ability, the opportunity to not get stuck feeling so discouraged about what is going on in our day in and day out life. And the way that we do this is in another letter that Paul wrote. This is in Colossians. If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. If you then have been raised with Christ, so if you are a follower of Jesus, set your mind on things above. We have to set our minds on eternity. It is not something that we naturally will do. Naturally, each and every one of us will focus on the thing that is most on fire. Naturally, each and every one of us will have the magnifying glass out on whatever is most discouraging for us in the moment. And Paul says we have to intentionally and purposefully set our minds on the things of God, set our minds on eternity, and that eternal focus transforms our present reality through things like encouragement. Focusing on the eternal encourages us. Does that mean everything in our life is going to be better? No. You know what we don't see in our passage? We do not see Paul say, hey, you've been struck down, afflicted, persecuted, you feel that's what you've been going through, but guess what? It's almost over. You don't see that at all. We just see Paul say, yes, this has happened, so we still don't have to lose heart. So I can't promise you that when we focus on eternity that all the things that were discouraging us before go away. I don't believe they actually will. What happens is we remember who our God is. We don't get focused on what is going on over here. We remember, my God spoke the universe into existence. It was my God who put the stars in the sky. It's my God who knows each and every person and knows the amount of hairs on their head. It's my God that is the one who is able to restore any broken relationship. It's my God who's the one that can provide in the direst of circumstances. It is my God who heals. And you want to know what shifts for us in those moments? Whenever we're focusing on who our God is, that encouragement piece will bubble up, I promise. It's impossible to think about the magnitude and the power and the wonder of our God and still feel overwhelmed and like we're getting our tail kicked in things that He has under His control. Focusing on the eternal encourages us. And focusing on the eternal pushes back the enemy. We have an enemy that would love for us to get stuck focusing on our discouragement. And when we remember who our God is, all of a sudden the place, the space that we have given the enemy to keep us focused on the wrong thing begins to be pushed back. We strip the enemy of the power of discouragement by focusing on the eternal, not the temporal. And you know me, we're gonna get practical. How do we set our minds on the eternal? What does that look like? So I intentionally finished your notes early so you can put them away. Everybody fold together. I'm gonna tell you practically how we can set our minds on the things above. Practically how we can think about the eternal. We do it through things like worship. I love worship. I love worshiping at Beltway. Both campuses, online campus whenever I'm not here, I love worship. It's one of my favorite things that we get to be a part of. We have incredible bands. They do an unbelievable job. But one of the reasons I love worship is because it is so hard to be singing about the greatness of our God and focused on whatever is discouraging us. Because we're saying things like this. Shout, for our God will make a way where there seems to be no way. There's nothing he can't do. He's the God of the breakthrough. Shout to the victory ahead. We remind our souls again, there's nothing he can't do. He's the God of the breakthrough. It's hard for me to be stuck in a discouraging place when I'm going, he's the one who makes a way. There's nothing he can't do. Or, bless God when the weapon's forming. Bless God when the walls are falling. Bless God because he goes before me. Every chance I get, I'll bless your name. Bless God for he holds the victory. Bless God for he's always with me. Bless God for he's always worthy. Bless God. He holds the victory. Bless God for he's always with me. In those seasons where we're feeling discouraged and we remember that not only is he going before me, but that he is with me and he holds the victory, it's pretty hard to stay stuck looking at the discouraging things when we're worshiping like that. When Sarah was in labor that April 12th night, 2011, she was so stoned, okay? She had all the medicine in the world. She had Demerol, Finnegan, and an epidural in her back. She was a Looney Tune. So much so that the nurse looked at her and they were like, she was filling out paperwork, which is crazy. You let somebody like that fill out paperwork. And she looked at the nurse and she goes, he's about to go get my pillow because we are pillow people. And it was then that Sarah stopped filling out paperwork. Sarah slept all night long. And I was, in my life to this day, it is the most anxious I've ever been. And I could not stop spiraling, and I could feel that spiral happening. And a song at that time had come out a couple of years before, maybe. It was sung by Bethel. The song is God, I Look to You. And there's a part of it that says, God, I look to you. I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. God, I look to you. You're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom. You know just what to do. And I listened to that song on repeat the entire night. Nothing else but that song, because it reminded my soul to set my mind on things above, not on what was going on. And I was overwhelmed. I was discouraged. I was fearful. God, I look to you. I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. God, I look to you. You're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom. You know just what to do. Then we came home, put Berkeley to bed. She's crying every night. We would throw on worship music constantly in our house. Because it helped always be a reminder for us to set our mind on things above, set our minds on the eternal, not what's going on in the moment. Worship helps us do that. Communion helps us do that. Every week at the back of our worship centers, we have communion. And every week I take communion. And I'm not telling you have to do that. I'm telling you for my spirit on Sunday mornings. By the time service starts, I'm on my 4th cup of coffee. I've had a Diet Coke and no food in my belly. And so I am wired. And my brain is going all over the place. We step into worship. And if I'll take communion and I'll just hold it. And I'll remember the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, and that it is that sacrifice that paid the price for me, the price that I should have paid, and now I get to spend eternity with him. Communion is a great way. It's a great tool for us to remember and set our minds on the eternal, to set our minds on the things of God. Community is a tremendous way. If this is your first Sunday at Beltway, I love that you're here. And this is the first time you're going to hear us talk about community. If this is the second time you've been at Beltway, this is the second time you've heard us talk about community, because we'll talk about it ad nauseum all the time. Because it is one of the most important things that we get to be a part of. And community often will be the place that will help us set our mind on things above. That 14 years ago, whenever we found out that Sarah was pregnant, and we knew that we had never been parents before, we got involved in a life group with people who are a little older than us. Okay, just a smidge. Some of them are in this room, so they're just basically the same age as us. They're not super old, they're just a little bit older than us, but they had kids, and we did not. And so we got involved in this life group so that we could constantly be talking to them about this, and that's the same life group that I'm in today. And it is the people in that life group that often, whenever I am in seasons of discouragement, that I go to them and I go, hey, I just need help. I just need to tell you this. And then they speak life into it. That's what community does. So here in the fall, we're doing a series called Think Ahead. You heard Mason and Daisy talk about it earlier. And this series is going to be awesome. It's going to be a powerful series, 8 weeks. And I'm encouraging you to get involved in a life group. But also, it might be time for some of you to step up and host a life group. And before you go, well, I'm not qualified, listen, you're qualified. Are you breathing? Okay, if you're breathing and love Jesus, you are qualified. We will give you everything you need to be a life group leader. But all you're committing to is 8 weeks. You're not committing for the rest of your life, 8 weeks. You can grab people that you're already doing life with. Community is one of the most important things that we do. So maybe you've been wondering about it. You can go to that URL. You can scan the QR code on the chair in front of you. But I encourage you, no matter what, get involved. Either lead a group or get involved in a group. Online, we have groups for you. Youth, we have groups for you. We will do this church-wide, from kids all the way on up. We will all be going on this journey together. Community helps us set our mind on things that are above. Reading the Word helps us set our mind on things that are above. I mean, it is where God reveals who He is. Testimonies can help us set our mind on things above. There's a ton of ways. We just have to do the work of setting our mind on the things that are above. And every single one of those things is something that Sarah and I relied on 14 years ago. We brought that baby home 13 years ago. Every one of them, from worship to community, to being involved in things around here, every one were things and tools that we used so that we didn't get stuck focusing on just the present, because an eternal focus transforms our present reality. So if you'll bow your heads, we have a moment we're going to spend just with the Lord, because whatever He has to say right now is infinitely more important than anything I have to say. I felt the weight as I was writing this and thinking about this weekend. Felt the weight of, you talk about discouragement, and often people can immediately identify the thing that is discouraging them. Maybe it's the health diagnosis or the issues in a marriage or finances. My encouragement to you is this: our God is big enough for your discouragement. He is. He can carry every single one of ours. He doesn't have a finite amount of ability to carry things like that. You can lay it at His feet and trust Him. God, I don't want to carry this anymore. It is yours. For others of us, we might be in the place that we just need to go, hey, God, I have gotten into the bad habit of focusing on whatever is on fire in front of me and not on the things of you. And today you need to renew your commitment to set your mind on things that are above. God, wherever we're at today, we thank you that you meet us right there. God, I ask that this week we would be bold. We'd be bold in the way that we set our mind on the things of you. Does that look different than the world around us? Yeah. Because outwardly, the things around us are wasting away. But we focus on you and what you have. And we know that in that, we can grab hold of the so we do not lose heart. It's in your name we pray. Amen.